Thank you. I think we will give it another 2 minutes for people to join, and after which I will be very happy to start the discussion. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much uh, for everyone who's joined, and a warm welcome to our participants this afternoon. This is the seventh episode of the Ignite series from ICCO. And today's conversation is going to be around diversity as a reputation driver in organizations. Uh, I'm sure you will all agree with me that diversity is not a side conversation anymore. It is a reputation test. For those of us who are in the field of communications, I think the bar is even higher for a simple reason that we advise our clients, we advise organizations on trust, as well as on culture, leadership, and public expectations. But we cannot talk about inclusion with credibility until and unless we're living it in our own organizations. Uh, this is no longer a simple conversation as well, because in some markets, diversity and inclusion language is facing a pushback. And I'm sure you will all agree with me on that. Some companies are becoming quieter as well as far as diversity and inclusion is concerned, and others are trying to hold a line to be very sure that they're not crossing over. And therefore, to me, this silence also says something, right? There is something that comes out of the silence as well. So today, I don't just want to discuss why diversity matters. I want us to discuss what makes it believable, what makes it believable to a point that you all can share experiences of how companies are making diversity a real conversation and not a conversation that is just something that is part of uh, a guideline or a book and not really lived by, right? Uh, I'm very delighted to be joined here by four people who will be on the panel today. And I'm going to take a few moments to introduce each and every one of them to you. Anna Pista, APR founder and CEO of Ardent Communication in Philippines, brings a strong Asia and agency leadership perspective. Anna has built and led the communications firm in a market where culture, community, and connections very deeply shape the reputation of the way the organizations hold themselves. I'm going to move to Isun, Dr. Isun, and if you could just wave out so that people know where you are.
Hello.
Uh, Dr. Isun is the Vice President from Sustainable Brand Turkey. Brings the lens of sustainability, which I think is always very important because it does also lend itself to an area where you're talking of purpose-led communications. And her work sits at the intersection of reputation, stakeholder expectation, as well as responsibility the brands carry in the society. So I think that is in itself a big one. I'm going to move to Ahu. Ahu, if you could please flag off. Yes, thank you so much.
Hi.
Consultant at LIA in Istanbul. Again, a great country from a diversity perspective, from a conversation perspective, and brings deep experience in strategic as well as integrated communications. Ahu's work across brand, reputation, and consultancy gives us a practical view of what organizations are willing to do beyond just the language of diversity, right? What is the real proof of concept on ground? And we have with us also Massimo, who is the CEO of
Hi, everyone.
Omnicom PR Group Italy and is also the global president for ICCO. Brings a global industry leadership perspective, both from a public affairs lens as well as a communications lens. And Massimo's work across reputation crisis as well as issue management and misinformation gives us a valuable view of how diversity is viewed from the lens of not just communication, but other areas as well, right? So once again, welcome all of you. I'm going to start with my opening question, and I'd request all of you, I'd go around and request all of you for your response to that in no order of priority, of course. My question to you is, diversity has moved from a values conversation to a reputation conversation, right? What has changed? What has led to the change? Happy to start with Anna.
Yeah, thank you, Neha. That's a very good question. I think I'd like to point three items here. Values conversation to our reputation conversation has really changed, I should say. First, the stakeholder expectations have evolved. People no longer judge organizations solely by the quality of their products or services. Right now, they also look at how organizations treat their employees, how they engage their communities, and how they respond to social issues. Before, it isn't like that. So, diversity has become a reflection of an organization's values and leadership. That's number one. Number two is transparency has become the norm. So, in today's digital world, every employee, customer, or community member has a voice. The gap between what an organization says and what it actually does is actually now quickly immediately exposed. So reputation is no longer shaped only by corporate messaging, which shapes a deep experience. It's not, the last one is there is now a stronger business case. Diverse organizations are often more innovative, make better decisions, understand their stakeholders more deeply, and are better positioned to earn long-term trust. So, diversity is no longer just a values conversation for me. It is a reputation conversation because trust has become one of an organization's most valuable asset. Now, today, people don't just ask, what does this organization stand for? They ask, does it consistently live by what it stands for? So, for me, that is what ultimately defines reputation nowadays.
Thank you so much, Anna. I'm going to move to Dr. Aisun, and I'd love to have your views on this question.
Yes, actually, I would like to divide your question into two. I will go fast, don't worry. Actually, I believe that it's not only the diversity, this meaning changed, but actually, or deepened, but actually, what has changed is the reputation itself, how it is produced. In this digital era, especially in artificial intelligence era, I mean, sometimes algorithms forms the reputation. So we have, as the communicators, we have to think about how reputation is formed actually. Edelman Trust Barometer states this quite clearly how reputation translated actually nowadays. And the barometer is saying that reputation is no longer broadcasted, and actually underneath a reputation which produces trust or trust builds reputation. But actually now people, instead of trusting the big companies or the authorities, they're trusting their communities. So actually our employees is our first communities that we need to trust, or we need to create or broadcast the trust that would be building the reputation itself. And when I come up to diversity, actually, because of social media again, and because of the multiple risks that we are facing at the moment in the world, many communities are now building political correctness. So every community, every small community itself act and react to the political issues. And when I say politics, I'm not talking about the politicians only, but every issue, every identity issues are becoming a political issue. So we can call this era as the political correctness issue as well. So that diversity itself, if we don't, manage it correctly, can become quite a big risk when we are building our reputation. So that if we build a diversified community, we can first try to utilize our employees well, so that they will help us to create the trust first and the reputation then, by, let's say, voicing our intention to the communities.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. I'll move to Ahu and hear from you, Ahu, on what do you feel about the question on diversity and reputation? How do they go hand in hand?
Well, Anna and Aysun made very important points. I just would like to take it a step further and say that I actually think something much bigger has changed. In Turkey, we have this saying, football is never just football, because, football is very important to us Turks. And I think it's the same for reputation. Reputation is not just reputation. It's never just reputation. It's not something you just wear like a tailor-made suit. It's the backbone of your organization. It is supposed to be the backbone of your organization. But with the discussion, this powerful discussion ICCO has brought up, it made me wonder, I'm not sure how many of the organizations ask these questions, genuinely ask these questions to themselves. Do they see diversity as a simply, let me say, corporation decoration, or do they see it as a leadership issue? That's very important, I believe. And we are living through, as Aysun highlighted, living through a profound cultural, societal, economic, political transformation. It's huge. It's huge. Change was a constant, but today it's like, I don't know, it's huge. And expectations are changing faster than institutions.
Right.
People used to judge organizations maybe only by what they produce, but it's no longer the case. They judge them by how they lead, who gets the voice, and whose reality is reflected in their decisions. So I believe diversity didn't become just a reputation issue. It became a governance issue. That reputation made it visible.
Very, very interesting point again. I think, yes, diversity it becomes a reputation driver only when you can see the proof of it really being implemented. Massimo, would love to hear from you.
Thank you, Nia. And I agree with you. It's about walk the talk, right? So I'd like to bring to the conversation a perspective from agencies. And I'd like to start by quoting a fact coming from the ICCO PR report 2526, where we see that strategic advice is the first area of growth over the last 12 months for agencies, and the first area for investments looking at the upcoming 12 months. This means that in this context, D&I are a crucial factor to provide strategic advisory for at least 3 reasons. The first one is because D&I allow agencies to better assess the business case where they provide consultancy, which means understanding the concerns of the stakeholders, their positions, and also mitigating risks, which is the second point, before they escalate. Diversity in the room means different lenses watching the same scenario, the same problem, the same challenge, and so providing multiple views and elements that allow, at the end, the creation of a robust strategy to win the long or short-term challenge. And the third topic is around the capability to communicate with effectiveness, having the chance to understand the cultural background, having the chance to understand the stereotypes surrounding a specific business case, etc., can give you the chance to be a strategic advisor, and so to prove it. If you prove it, you will be trusted and your reputation will be strengthened at the end of the day. So I think we could refer to several reasons why D&I today is a strong element for the reputation of the organization, of an organization. But I think I would pick in this case the business reason. It's an enabler, 100%.
Thank you so much, Massimo, for that. I think I will start from the point where you left, Massimo. I think you spoke about a very interesting point, which is about intent and the fact that there has to be evidence. And I'm therefore going to move to Dr. Aysun. Your work really sits at the intersection of sustainability, brand, and brand communications, you know. And I think sustainability has taught organizations that reputation needs evidence, not just intent. I may have the right intent to be able to build diversity in an organization, but if I don't have the evidence, it's a lost cause, right? Is diversity now going through the same test, which is the test of intent versus evidence? You're on mute.
Oops, sorry. Now, it's now even in tougher version of ESG actually, or sustainability path. I mean, when we think about how companies integrated ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues in their, communication messages. First, we started with claiming that we are green, or claiming that we are, paying attention to equalities, let's say, or diversities.
Right.
And then when people become more aware of the environmental issues, climate crisis, and so on, then a suspicious period started. And for our communication community, let's say, we invented the word greenwashing. Now we are in an era that if you adopt an ESG strategy or sustainability strategy into your market, you have to prove it first, scientifically prove it. You have to give evidences to people and, try to create an attractive storytelling around this evidence-based activities that you are doing actually. And in Turkey, for example, when we come to the diversity perspective, in Turkey, for example, the major, let's say, agenda of the public can be gender equality. But when companies talk about gender equality as their brand narrative, they're usually talking about the presence. However, presence is not actually accountability, or it doesn't mean that you're giving the power to the gender, to women, actually. So we need to not only talking about the demographic basis of diversity, so actually the presence of it, but we need to talk about the cognitive diversity perspective of diversity. What I mean by saying cognitive perspective of diversity, not only talking about the presence, but actually how we are giving the visibility to different communities or different identities, let's say, and how we diversify the thoughts in the company and to our community or target segments, and how we incorporate the mental model into our system. And Alhu as well mentioned about the governance. So it's not only about saying, just like the first era of sustainability, the claim era, but actually we need to close the gap between saying and doing. So we need to integrate this cognitive perspective of diversity, not the demographic only, but the cognitive diversity, cognitive perspective of diversity into our governance. So actually, it's not only about your narratives of the brand, but actually it's about how you build your governance, how you build your brand's DNA with diversity. So
Very interesting.
then we can talk about the diversity washing as well, because in every 8th of March, Women's Day, for example, probably in the world it is the same. I mean, every company talk about women equality actually, but do we really incorporated our diversity perspective cognitively into our governance? That's the issue. And and this issue creates a lot of risks for the companies, as I mentioned, in a political correctness era, because the reputation itself is our financial asset, and saying the truth about what you are doing is let's say, a quite important, strong part of this asset, let's say. So I can try to build the, parallel approaches between ESG or sustainability marketing with diversity.
Very interesting. I mean, if diversity is part of governance, then it ought to happen, right? Otherwise, if diversity is just a campaign, then it is not really the culture that you're living.
Exactly.
Ahu, I'm going to move to you. You've written about the slow pace of progress on gender equality in business, right? And from a brand and business lens, what really keeps an organization stuck between acknowledging the gap and actually changing the system to make sure what is needed to happen should happen?
Well, thank you. I believe there's a fundamental difference between representation and redistribution of power, and that's the question of that. The gap stems from that. Organizations have become remarkably good at acknowledging inequality. I mean, they do reports, they do International Women's Day celebration, they launch mentoring programs, but acknowledging inequality is not same as redesigning the system that at the very beginning produces it.
True.
And Virginia Woolf is my hero. I love her, and even if it has been like 100 years, almost 100 years, when she wrote A Room of One's Own, I'd like to quote from Virginia Woolf, her book. There she argues that creativity is never a talent issue. It's an issue of economic independence, physical space, and ownership. And this is still true. And I think it is also true for boardrooms in our modern age. It's still Virginia Woolf's room is we are living the modern version of Woolf's room. The question is no longer can a woman enter a room. The question is now who owns the room? Who determines what is decided in that room? I mean, I guess what I'm saying is the vocabulary has changed.
Sure.
But mythology has not changed. And there is this famous psychoanalysis and sociology professor, Julia Kristeva, I really like to read. She reminds us that every social order is also a symbolic order. If the symbolic image is of authority still looks male, then the organization unconsciously reproduces it. And it keeps reproducing it. And actually, this is limiting to all genders, male also for males.
True.
So I think the challenge is not whether or not to have diversity programs. The challenge is, just like Aysun very well put, the challenge is organizational imagination. It's until institutions imagine power differently, they will continue reproducing the same leadership under different labels. That's just, that will be
very well put. Very well put.
History will be keep repeating itself.
Very well put. So
can I add something about
yes,
that?
Anna, of course.
Yeah. Okay. I think what Aysun and Aho is saying is that inclusion, diversity does not succeed when it's treated as a symbolic initiative only. I think that's what they're saying, that when DEI sits in a silo, like perhaps within a single department communication campaign, it rarely delivers meaningful change.
Of course.
To succeed, I think it must be embedded across the organization's strategic and operational systems. So it talks about it should be integrated into the governance frameworks. It should be integrated into the organizational policies. It should be integrated into the recruitment and leadership development, operational decision making. It must also be measured and reported. Because if it's just it's a campaign, it's symbolic like Pride Month and all that, it gets us nowhere. So we have to deep dive into this and do this further.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, the point that all of you are also making is that from there not being a conversation on diversity to there being a conversation on diversity to there being a vocabulary, this change has happened. But the implementation of making sure that you have proof on ground is still an area where we are lacking, right? I'm going to move to Massimo. Massimo, ICCO for a very, very long time has spoken about diversity and inclusion as part of professional standards for the PR industry, because we do understand the fact that the PR industry is very largely dominated by women, at least at the starting point, right? From a global industry lens, are we moving fast enough from guidelines to the real change? And I'm asking you this question because you do have a view of not just what's happening in a part, but also the global view because of you being the president for ICCO.
Thank you, Nia. It's a very interesting question. Let me touch 3 points. The first one is, let me read a finding from the Global Women in PR Annual Index 2025. D&I fatigue emerges. 20% of professionals report their organization has removed diversity and inclusion from its communications. signaling a worrying drop in the focus on equality targets. So this comes, in my view, from the geopolitical climate that we are experiencing in few regions. But I would say that companies who have been investing and still believe in the power of DNI will not run away from DNI. They will keep investing. They might be more silent, but they will keep producing tangible outcomes. I'm sure about that. The second point is around the ethnicity demographics reflected. I will bring the agency perspective. And again, these are the latest data from the ICCO World PR Report 25-26. There are very interesting data in my view. So when we talk about reflecting ethnicity demographics, we have the best performing regions that are Africa, APAC, Eastern Europe, and LATAM. While Middle East, North America, United Kingdom, and Western Europe are a bit behind, right? But when we look into the percentage of firms that have a diversity and inclusion policy, is the other way around. So Western Europe, United Kingdom, North America, they rank in the top of the list. And the same, we have the same figure when we talk about the percentage of firms that have dedicated trained DNI personnel, which means my reading is that we acknowledge the problem. We are doing everything that we can in terms of industry to improve the scenario, but is not only an industry, let's say, issue. I think it's an ecosystem issue. Let me bring you an example. In some cases, it's hard to convince a specific ethnic group that PR and com is a good career. Because in their view, becoming a banker or any other professional is better. So this is a better option. And the work we have to do, I think, is with the universities and public sector to make understand the value that we bring to the table. It takes time, by the way, and it takes synergies with our stakeholders of the media and information ecosystem, at least. And then there is a third point, which is worrying me a lot. If we look at how PR people feel that AI will change their work, we have, according to our latest report, 91% of people saying AI will significantly impact our job, right? And I think it's doing it already. But the question is, if we think of the people that are designing and building AI, latest data talk about 85-90% of engineers being men. And I don't think, in principle, this is per se a good news. I think DNI should be embedded also in the technology that has transformative power, not only for a profession, but for the world. And so I think on this point, all key players having a tight relationship with AI because of their profession should advocate for DNI principle to be embedded also when it goes to the creation of AI or new AI formats. So these were my 3 points on that.
No, fantastic response, Massimo. I think your last point is so valid that, engineering as a profession has largely been considered as a male-dominated profession, right? And therefore, when you're looking at technological piece, when you're talking about AI, naturally, a male profile comes more to your mind than a female profile would. And I think as communicators, maybe our job today when it comes to diversity is far tougher than it was before, because today we do have the added complexity of AI. So yeah, absolutely agree with you. I think I'm going to move to Anna. Anna, look, I think the point is that we as communicators, while we can communicate, but we're also, looking at what's happening from a client perspective, right? And from an agency lens, are clients becoming more serious about diversity as a reputation issue, or is it still treated as a campaign at the moment? So, for example, like Ahu mentioned, that you can have a great campaign on Women's Day, and Ison also resonated the same thing. But that's a campaign, and that's about it, really, right? Do you really see organizations being real about this particular issue?
I think, thank you, Neha. I think we're seeing a positive shift about this. More clients right now, especially in the Philippines, recognize that diversity is no longer just a social responsibility issue. It is a business and reputation imperative. Just very recently in the Philippines, there's been a lot of crisis that took place in the institutions, and all the more that they saw how reputation is important and how this would play. Stakeholders now, especially employees, consumers, investors, and younger generations are right now paying close attention to whether an organization's values are reflected in its actions. That said, I should say that some organizations still approach diversity as a campaign moment, something to highlight during occasions, like, for example, Pride Month, International Women's Day, or cultural celebrations. The challenge is that stakeholders can easily distinguish between performative messaging and genuine commitment. So, from an agency perspective, our role is to help clients more to move from campaigns to culture. So, diversity should not live only in communications, it should be evident in leadership, hiring, partnership, product design, customer experience, and community engagement. So, when communication simply reflect what the organization is already doing, the message is authentic, and authenticity is what builds trust. In the Philippines, we're seeing encouraging examples. More companies are investing in inclusive workplaces. Before, it wasn't like that. They're very vocal about it, supporting mental health. They're very vocal about it, promoting women into leadership roles. They're very keen on it, and expanding opportunities beyond Metro Manila to avoid being regionalist. So these initiatives become powerful reputation assets because they are backed by real action, not just creative campaigns. So the strongest brands right now communicate diversity because it is timely. They communicate it because it's true. So yeah, it has changed a lot, and we've been doing a lot of works from the agency perspective, like Mosimo. We've been getting a lot of requests and work
Yeah.
on these areas, and we're asked to have a seat on the table.
Interesting. So what you tell us is a mixed bag. While there is some good news about the fact that there are some companies who are embracing diversity, but for a large part of them also, it is just a campaign, which is Ison's point of saying, are we talking about diversity washing, right? And I think that's a critical point. Ison, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to ask you a question, which is how organizations speak about diversity in a way, how should they speak about diversity in a way that it feels locally rooted, but is still credible across markets? Because sometimes what you actually need is a great proof of concept of somebody implementing it really well for the others to take inspiration from it and do the same thing.
Yeah, thank you, Now. Actually, I will continue by taking Anna's word authenticity to answer your question. Actually, I will, carry the conversation from here. actually, English is not translation of, I mean, what actually either can accept the organ that it transplanted or reject it. So it is exactly the same issue actually. So if it rejects, it means that either you put your communication budget for nothing actually, or you may face a risk of a community's reactions. That's another thing. And the best thing that you can face is that a unsuccessful communication campaign that would not be resonating well with your target segments. So this is the best case that you can face actually.
Right.
So it is a really big case here that everybody's react to everything. I don't know if it is in your countries, but in Turkey and in my a real country Cyprus, it is the same. I mean, people are reacting for everything that they don't accept. So this is a risk for the brands. So actually, to be authentic, that it means to be original, to be attractive, to be trustworthy, actually, and trustable. You have to give a resonating message to the people. And actually, sometimes the social issues, when we divide ESG into words and say social issues that brands are carrying with their brand campaigns, are usually created in headquarters. But when you
True.
local country, some resonate or it is not accepted well. For example, in US, it's usually the ethnic minorities, the skin colors. In Turkey, sometimes again the ethnic communities or gender issue, for example. So the agenda of the public about diversities are different. Actually, maybe we can grab a cultural strategy in order to create an authentic voice that would be resonating well with your communities. And cultural strategies say that taking the leadership and identity myth. I mean, this is called by Douglas Holt, and I recommend everybody to read his articles, academic articles. So according to cultural strategy, it is important to take the leadership of the cultural subcultures and be the voice of the different identities in the cultures, because now we are facing a quite fragmented identities in the communities. So these cultural strategies cannot be created in headquarters again. I mean, they are created in the societies, they're created in your target segments, they're created in social media activism, they're created in the street activism, they're created in within the communities.
Yeah.
So actually, in order to be authentic, let's say again, and resonate well with your diversity campaigns or diversity communication that would be resonating well with your communities, it's important to be cultural illiterate. So now maybe the targets or the objectives of our research have to be changed as well. Instead of asking the intention of people about what they would do or if they would be accepting a message or not, it's better to dive into the cultural myths, try to understand the cultural issues and problems of the different identity myths, and then incorporate your messages and all your campaigns accordingly. So I would say that it's not only localizing, but actually even take it into smaller portions and localizing with the different communities in your the countries, let's say.
Thank you so much. I mean, localization, absolutely. If we're talking about localized campaigns, why must a topic like this not have its own local legs? I think is extremely an important point. I just want to say that we do have the last 15 minutes left for this panel. For everyone who's here, if you have any questions, please to put them in the chat box, and I will take the last 5 minutes for questions. We do have 10 minutes for two more questions, and I have a question for Ahu, and I also have a question for Massimo, so I will go around quickly. Ahu, when we look at our own industry, right, PR is largely powered by women, despite that only 51% of the women make it to the boardrooms, right? What do you have to say about this gap? And what do you have to therefore talk about the profession and the reason as to why you think you don't see enough women in a leadership position?
Well, thank you, Nia. There are 6 of us in this conversation today, and 5 of us are female. Only the president of ICCO, I'm sorry, Massimo, I don't mean to. I intend well. And ICCO is, creating this space for us to discuss this situation, and it's very important. Yes, there is a very interesting paradox when it comes to PR, the industry, our industry. It's largely dominated, powered by women, yet leadership seems to be disproportionately male. And that's our paradox. And I think it tells us something very important, because I think it tells us that organizations don't reward contribution. They still reward access to power. And I mean, let's be honest, still male people have much more access to power. Women have become highly visible in execution. But they are still underrepresented in the boardroom, in defining strategy, in allocating capital, appointing leaders, and shaping the governance. They are very, very underrepresented, especially in countries like Turkey. I mean, in Europe, they have already succeeded some wins. But in Turkey, we still have a lot to, very a lot of things to deal with. So I think we need to accept that the presence, I mean, having a presence is not having the power. There can be like 20 women, but it doesn't mean that they have any power. And participation it doesn't mean that you have an influence. That's also another issue, I think. And diversity without decision-making authority becomes rather symbolic rather than structural. It doesn't have any effect. That's why participation doesn't mean influence. And I believe actually this is very, very important, because I think gender equality is not just a diversity topic among many. I think it is the foundation on which every other diversity conversation stands. If humanity cannot solve equality between women and men, how we can solve the other problems. I mean, it doesn't, it is very difficult to believe that we can generally solve any other form of exclusion if we
Very
cannot.
interesting, Anu. That's a very powerful statement that you make. And I think what you're also saying is extremely important, which is the position of power, not having the position of power. And I think all the other aspects that you've mentioned, it literally goes back to a point of saying that when you advocate for diversity, don't just advocate for diversity. What in diversity are you advocating for? It becomes extremely crucial. On the other hand, I also do feel that there is some amount of onus that I would put on women, because at the end of the day, it is also a responsibility on the shoulders of the women to make sure that they make boardrooms their horizon, because if boardroom is not their horizon, a diversity conversation is meant to fall flat, right?
Exactly.
I'm going to move to Massimo, and maybe this is really the last question that I have on the panel today, which is, in the world of misinformation and mistrust, does diversity make communication more credible because it brings more voices into decision making, or do you think it's the exact opposite of that?
Thank you, Nia. Just let me build on what I said. I agree that depending on the geographical areas, you might have peaks of disparity. Totally agree. When we talk about SEO, you might know that at the end of next year, Nia will be the president. So in this sense, is a good balance of representation and gender equality. That's my view for what I can say, which in my view applies very well to what Nia said now, so related to disinformation and misinformation. I think DNI is a great asset also here, because of at least two factors. The first one is that having diverse people in the room, this can allow you to spot bias, to spot cultural misunderstanding or inaccurate narratives.
Right.
I always say that PR is about creating understanding among different stakeholders on a specific case or topic. So this is the first point. The second point is around diversity, not only in terms of gender or ethnicity, but professional background. We have been working with intensity on fighting and prepping our colleagues against misinformation, disinformation, and this via a real cross-contamination with other disciplines of the information society. So I'm talking about fact checkers, I'm talking about journalists, I'm talking about editors, institutions, and universities. And so I think if you are in a position to create such a cross-disciplinary competence, you will be able to prevent and fight better misinfo and disinfo narratives. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Massimo. We do have a question in the chat box, and I'm going to read it out for anyone who'd like to answer this. What are the two things PR companies can do to encourage women to take up leadership roles? And this is a question that we've got from Amit Prabhu. So anyone who wants to answer this, please do. And then we're literally at the fag end of our discussion. Anyone who wants to take this question?
It's a very difficult question because it should be the reverse. It should be a question to be asked men. Because as far as I'm, I don't want to create anything here or a controversy, but women, I believe we are the type or the leaders that don't speak louder, but we listen better. So I think I would reverse that and throw that to our male leaders. And unfortunately, it's only Mosimo here. It's like, because we've been doing the listening, we've been listening better. And the most important thing a PR person or a communicator should be doing is to listen. That's why we have two ears and only have one mouth. So I will throw
Yeah.
that back. I will throw that back and say, why don't we have a seat on the table, or why do women have why do we have lesser women leading than men when we are doing all these things? So it's a complicated, it's a simple question, but just like Aisun and Ahu said, it's something that we cannot, put there on the table right now and say this is an answer.
And
Anna,
I would like to, sorry, I would like to add something to Anna. Maybe we need to change, the image of the power itself. I mean, maybe we have to ask this question: what and who we are finding powerful. I mean, because only the preset images defining these actually. So maybe this question can be in the heads of everybody that listening this webinar right now. I mean, what we are thinking is powerful, and how the image of power is figured in our heads. I mean, let's answer this question by ourselves and try to cope with it all together.
Absolutely.
Because I mean,
Yeah.
when I watch sometimes the women presidents or the leaders of the countries, sometimes I'm noticing that they are imitating men, because we are expecting them to do so. Otherwise, we won't find them powerful. I mean, that is the problem. It is the image in the heads that we learned is the problem.
Right. We have the last 3 minutes left. Massimo, I think given
Yes.
that you're the only male member that we have on our panel today,
Yeah.
any comments that you have on what Anna just said a while ago
Sure.
about answering the question on what do we need to do more to have
Sure.
women in leadership roles in agencies?
I agree that first of all is there is a cultural dimension that changes from region to region, and that shape society and dynamics of power within a specific environment. I totally agree with that. Bringing the perspective of an agency as a workplace, I think, which was the question. I think the first thing to do is to create a culture. We always say that culture is strategy for breakfast. A culture that allows anyone, any kind of talent, to have the ambition to lead the business. And this means to put in place a specific policy, for instance, around flexibility. Most of the time, in several parts of the world, ladies, women, mamas are obliged to choose between family and career. That's a fact. Having in place policies that encourage, with flexibility, the possibility to take a leadership role are I mean, this is the first step I would take. Is this happening? I don't know. I know for sure that in many places this is happening. We do have colleagues that are running successful businesses everywhere in the world and are amazing ladies. In other markets is way more difficult.
Sure.
And I think it's something that we can deal with only if we work within the society to change this.
Thank you so much, Massimo. Thank you so much to all the panelists here. It's been a great conversation. The only thing that I will say that I do acknowledge the fact that there is some ground that we have all covered as a world in terms of diversity, but there is a lot more to be done to be able to show real proof of concept. Intent alone is not enough. There needs to be evidence on ground. And I know we've just touched on the topic of diversity as a broad topic, but we haven't got into the smaller details of ageism and flexibility and sharing the load and so on and so forth. But I think, Massimo, the fact that you, as one of our male colleagues on this panel, acknowledges that there is a lot that needs to be done to be able to reach to a point where we can accept the fact that we are embracing diversity in its truest form. I think that is some headroom in itself. I also do believe that there isn't any problem in the world that communications cannot solve. And therefore, I would put the onus back on all of us. And as a responsibility from ICCO, I think Massimo and I carry it back to make sure that we make the conversations around diversity far richer than what they are today. But thank you so much. It's been an interesting conversation. And I'm sure we will stay connected and watch the space more on diversity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.